Okay, guys, so here's the deal with this. There are certain Social Security disability questions about mental impairments, mental conditions, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, personality disorder, PTSD, etc., that you will experience in a Social Security disability hearing. And what we're going to be doing is going through specifically what are some of those particular impairments. And I want you to understand why it's incredibly important to understand like the general context of where they're coming from, what the judge is going for, how you should respond to them. If you don't know the answer, what you should be doing in order to go ahead and create the answer in your brain. We're going to go through all of those. Here we go. Now, these are 5 questions disability judges will ask about your mental impairments. And if you enjoy these videos, please remember to like, please remember to subscribe and click the all button. Now, first off, they don't normally phrase the questions in this way. I have reconstructed the questions to make them into like a simple one sentence version of the way that they'd normally be. Now, usually the judges will put down foundational questions that will build and lead up to something that asks this. But what I've done is just gone ahead and just gotten rid of all that junk, no foundational questions, no this, no that, and made it into a singular learning experience question for your Social Security disability insurance or supplemental security income hearing. Now, here are the 5 questions. Let's get to it. Number 1, when was the last time that you felt your medication was not effectively reducing your mental impairment symptoms? Let me read it to you again. When was the last time that you felt your medication was not effectively reducing your mental impairments symptoms? Okay. So let's pull this thing apart, right? Let me read it to you again a little bit slower. Let's start thinking about it. Let's let it groove into our brain a little bit. Okay. When was the last time that you felt your medication, right? Medication was not effectively reducing. It wasn't reducing, right? That something wasn't getting rid of your mental impairment symptoms, right? So you have a condition, a medical condition, a mental condition, symptom 1, symptom 2, symptom 3, symptom 4. You take your medication and it reduces these symptoms. Cool. So, okay, so the judge is looking for a time, a medication, an impairment, and a small story as to why the medication is not effective, right? Okay. Now, you see a lot of you were probably thinking during that you could just go, oh, yeah, like 2 weeks ago, yada, yada, yada. But no, that's not how it works. You need to answer this like a pro, because if you're going to be, chilling out on this channel, then I expect you to have a really strong answer for that when you actually go in front of your disability judge. All right. I want you to win. I really do. I expect you to win. Now, let's get right to it. Now, remember, if you have a notation in your medical record that you aren't taking the medication as prescribed, you'll likely shoot yourself in the foot with this question. Also, remember that if you were switching doctors, switching medications, switching geographic locations, you're moving from this house to that state, this can make the question much, much more complex. So just prepare and plan ahead of time. So the best bet is a time that was recent, okay? But it should also link up with a moment in time that was medically meaningful for you. So, for example, if you had an emergency behavioral visit, or Baker Act or PTSD emergency where you were complaining about the symptoms being much stronger than normal, could be voices in your head, could be thoughts of, doing harm to yourself, things like that, medical conditions, then that would be when you would lock down the medication, impairment, a time, and put it into a story. That would be a good example of something like that. Okay. Now, an example answer, because people always ask me for an example answer. I'm not going to do this for all of them because, every person's different, so you make up your own. But an example answer for this would be 3 months ago on a Tuesday, I had to go to the behavioral center for a Baker Act because I was willing to commit to something horrible. And the voices in my head were so loud, it was as if my medication wasn't even in my system, which it was, right? Great answer. Great answer. Amazing answer for that. I'll read it to you again. Okay, so here we go. 3 months ago on a Tuesday, I had to go to the behavioral center for a Baker Act because I was willing to commit to something horrible. And the voices in my head were so loud, it was as if my medication wasn't even in my system, which it was. Okay, so that's a great answer to that. Now we're getting to question 2. Okay, question 2. All right. When was the last time you were inpatient at a mental facility? When was the last time you were inpatient at a mental facility, and what steps were undertaken by the staff to reduce the severity of your symptoms? Okay. Now, this one is tricky because it proves that your symptoms can be lessened. So you always have to be careful with those. So, for example, if you are able to calm down or you're able to be relaxed without someone injecting something into you, then that means something to the judges, right? They're saying, okay, this person has some intentional control over basically how things occur to them. Okay, so that's important. Keep that in mind. Now, with that said, with many of these impairments, judges are assessing your ability to control them in a work environment. And if you can't, what the crisis medical treatment looks like for you as a result of you going full tilt. Okay. So let's break this one down. But first, let's read it again. That way you get another chance to hear it. All right, here it is. When was the last time you were inpatient at a mental facility, and what steps were undertaken by the staff to reduce the severity of your symptoms? Let that sink in. Diana Fernandez, thank you. Thank you for the donation. I really appreciate it. That's awesome. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. Now, guys, keep in mind, I don't usually see what's in the comment section because I've got my script here. I've got ideas here. I've got the camera here. And like the chat session is all the way over here. So that's why I tend to see if you do like those or donations, then I can actually see it because it pops up. It's a totally different color, has a bunch of extra stuff that makes it really stand out. So I know something's going on. Now, with that said, let's break this one down. It's another last time question. But first, you have to understand something about it. So it's another last time question. So think of the date and time, a facility you went to, where you were inpatient, where the staff was treating you, and the treatment was effective at somewhat or entirely relieving your mental impairment symptoms. If you know the medical terms for the treatment, that is always helpful and you should use them. So many claimants never know what the medical terms are for their treatment. And so they'll be like, well, they were kind of doing this or they were kind of doing that. That's not good. You want to know specifically what they were doing as part of the treatment, because in the judge's brain, when the judge hears that type of treatment, their brain knows what actually occurs during that treatment, and you're then talking their language. That's super duper crucial. So this question, you have to be careful, because if you're showing improvement, then it's not going to help your claim, because then it shows that there are things that could be done to go ahead and make you potentially a better worker in society, as opposed to a severely disabled person who can't do any work. Number 3, please remember also to like and subscribe. Don't be stingy with that like button. Use the like button. It likes to be liked. All right, here we go. Number 3. Do you feel like your mental conditions are improving? And help me out with understanding why. Careful with this. If you are improving, then you are likely not severe enough. The judges are looking for something that is marked, or put in less medical terminology, severe. So not moderate, not mild. Extreme is okay, but severe will definitely do to get you found disabled. Now, let's hear it again. Let's hear the question. Do you feel like your mental conditions are improving? And help me out with understanding why. Okay. So first off, if you are improving, then the likelihood of being found disabled drops even more. So right off the bat, you need to consider if you have improvement, or if there was improvement and it was short-lived and back to the same limitations that you had before the treatment, right? Make sure you assess that and understand the difference there. Now, when a judge states, help me out with understanding this, or can you give me some direction, right, with where to go with this and how this is going to go, or tell me about what happens in that situation, it comes off as a friendly jest from the judge, like the judge is interested to hear more, wants to know what's going on, etc. Now, that's fine. They are asking you to basically go freewheeling in the conversation so that you can go ahead and tell your story. Now, 99% of people think that they are amazing at improv. Okay. That's where you're able to act on the spot. Now, some of the people watching this will say that their impairments aren't acting and fluffy fluff and yada, yada. Cool. But every time you talk or make a movement, it's called acting, so long as it's voluntary and you did it on your own intentional, basis. Like you made the choice to do that. So if you're in extreme pain and can't speak, that's not acting, right? Now, some of you will think that you are in extreme pain all the time, and these people tend to be the fluffy fluff people who yada yada are unfortunately kind of lying to themselves about how bad they really are. If you're in extreme pain, you're crying involuntarily to the level where you are making screaming noises and your body is making involuntary movements, okay? But the fluffy fluff people think like a nice little tear up is extreme pain. It's not. It's not even close. So just for those out there in the fluffy fluff bill, please do a self-assessment. Ask yourself, okay, when was the last time that I, as a fluffy fluff, right, was in the hospital overnight for multiple nights, or in, a behavioral center for an extended period of time overnight. And pretty much right then and there, we can kind of, cut the self-loving and loathing BS artists with that one question very quickly out of the equation. And the reason why it's important to do that is because it shows us the difference between those who are involuntary and voluntary. Voluntary, I'm so bad. Involuntary, they're in the hospital because they can't control it. They can't control what's going on. It's a crisis situation. Walter Scott, thank you. Thank you for the $5 donation. Love the little head there, but the hat, the backward hat, very cool. Very, very cool. Love it, love it. So with that said, the point is maybe 5% of people are good at improv. And if you are always like the life of the party or coming up with new and unique jokes, then that means that you're good at improv, while, everyone else is just not. So when the judge asks you to freewheel with a question, you need to pause and think about your answer. You need to be sure about what you want to say going forward. Now, in this question, the judge is asking you what makes you better, right? What makes your impairments less severe? The judge is asking you why you feel that you are seeing improvement. The judge is asking you why you feel that your symptoms are reduced in severity. The judge is asking you why you can have a better, more productive day. The judge is asking you why you can see a little light at the end of the tunnel. And you need to be trained well enough to know what to say or how to recoup your thoughts and reapproach the question with a plan. If you are thinking that you'll have a plan on the spot, you probably won't. Here's why. When you're sitting in front of a federal judge or you're over the phone with a federal judge, all of a sudden, it's much tougher. Like, you can run questions with your attorney, but still, you're going to be nervous when the judge comes on the phone. You can go ahead and basically run questions with yourself, which is not, it doesn't work the same. It just doesn't. Like, you can do that and you can like master the question and keep pushing and pushing and pushing. But until you have somebody with with somebody's voice that's different than yours, asking the question and then asking in a different way and then asking a different way, like, you can have a friend do that with you. But then you need an attorney to ask you the trick questions to prep you for when the judge is going to ask you the trick questions. So those are just things to keep in mind because you have to be prepared for this big day in your life. Question number 4. What are your symptoms and how often do you experience them with your anxiety? Okay, so here are the statute symptoms that you traditionally see required for anxiety: restlessness, easily fatigued, difficulty concentrating, irritability, muscle tension, or sleep disturbance. Now, this is what the judge is looking for with life-specific facts. If you don't have life-specific facts, then you are just repeating the statute language back to them, and the judge is going to know that you haven't been trained, that you don't have an attorney, and basically you have begun the winging it process, right? Just giving whatever winged, testimony you can. Cool. And that's fine. I DIY things too myself. The first couple of times you'll do something right, it's going to look terrible. It's going to sound horrible. By the 10th time, it's starting to sound not too bad. By the 100th time, it's professional. You could deliver that line, right? The point is the judge is looking for answers about how your symptoms show themselves in your present day life. Let's go back to the question real quick again. What are your symptoms and how often do you experience them with your anxiety? The point is the judge is looking for answers about how your symptoms show themselves in that present, like today, past couple of months, past couple of years life. Anyone can say they're irritable. But having a police report where you blew up at a crowd of people speaks volumes, or having a sleep study because you just can't fall asleep. You need medical treatment to finally knock you out at 5 a.m. in the morning, or you wake up paralyzed from muscle tension and a nurse needs to come and move your body to get you out of bed. And I know some of you are going to say, oh my goodness, I don't need to be anywhere that bad to be found disabled. I don't need to be anywhere near that to be found disabled. And there's still a few high percent passage rate judges. So yes, you'd be correct. You wouldn't need to be that bad for those few passage rate judges that are really, really high. But they're rare. And most of them retired during COVID. So you're down to the itty bitty few little pile of high percent passage rate judges that are left in the country, which means that what's happening is the culture of those people who are like, oh, my friend plays basketball and he's on disability for back problems. Those people are getting kicked off of disability benefits left and right with an overpayment to the U.S. Treasury. The world is changing. The system is changing. Massive audits are occurring. So you have to understand what you're competing against because they're trying to approve fewer people while at the same time go ahead and basically increase the validity of those who have the benefits for being the severely disabled person that which they claim they are and the medical evidence provides for. Question number 5. Here we go. Number 5. When you quit your last 3 jobs, can you explain to me why you didn't try to find a new job in a different vocational industry. Okay. Judges don't like it when claimants quit their jobs. The claimant always says the same thing, being that they walked off the job or they just didn't show up, no call, no show. If you have mental impairments, know this, you need to get fired from the job, because then it was their choice, not your choice. It was their choice, the employer's choice, to go ahead and end the relationship because you couldn't hack it. You weren't able to do it. Judges know that there are a lot of people who have no intention of working. I know some of you will say that that's not true, that everyone wants a job, but trust me on this one. For those who don't want a job, it's not actually traditional laziness that people would, oh, that person's lazy, or that person's lazy, or that person. It's not that. Let me explain how it works in their head, because in their head, they shouldn't need to work to begin with. So for them, they aren't being lazy. They're just not finding the right fit for what inspired them to have work or income or whatever. So trust me, it's different than what people call them out to be, which is like, oh, that person's lazy, that person's a millennial, this person, it's different than that. So as a result of this, you have people who get a job but hate waking up early, or get a job and they hate the boss that they were assigned, or they basically get a job and they hate having to clean a toilet. To them, it's not laziness. They just didn't like a particular part of the job. So disabled people, instead of not liking something, they really can or have a much harder time doing that thing, which means that they are even more likely to walk off of a job. So, just be aware of that. And then they, of course, a lot of them become no shows, no calls, stuff like that. And as a result of this, you get claimants who don't have an explanation, but, did have a reason for basically, the walking off of this. So the reason isn't something they can explain until they have been trained for the most part. So let me give you some examples here so that you kind of know how that works. The person left working at a fast food restaurant. They didn't like the manager because they don't like interacting with others who have authority over them. They don't like all the beeping sounds from the machines. They don't like the fast-paced environment required to swap out foods and deliver them to people. Okay, they don't like the customers who are mean to them when they get the orders wrong. They don't like knowing they have 2 marks against them already, and the next one will be their last when they're terminated. They don't like to know that they have to go to the doctor's appointment right after work and will likely be late because they can't leave early since they are already on bad terms with the boss from doing things incorrectly to begin with. The point is, you need to think about your impairments and have detailed analysis of why the functions of those jobs were particularly difficult for you. Then you need to run the questions with your attorney a couple of times, because when you deliver the info, you aren't set up and ready for trick questions. And you aren't ready for the questions to be asked with different phrasings. So the point is, after waiting usually 3 years, you don't want to be foolish with your disability hearing when it comes to answering these types of questions. This is life, and not modern day high school. So in modern day high school, you get to resubmit things, you get to reattempt things, you get to do some things over and over to go ahead and get the grade up. Well, in law, that's not how it works. In law, that's your hearing, that's your moment, that's your day, that's your time. There's no makeup class unless there's something within statute that allows it, which most of the things that people whine and complain about are not. This is the day, this is the time, and you're competing for a spot on the judge's docket calendar and a spot on the list of approvals amongst the other claimants. So be smart about this and do your absolute best. Now, let me read that question one last time so that you can hear it, and then we'll just do a final wrap up on it, and then I'll read all 5 questions so that we have a summary at the very end of this. Number 5, when you quit your last 3 jobs, I purposely chose 3 there because I want to show repetition. I want to show that the person couldn't do the work. When you quit your last 3 jobs, can you explain to me why you didn't try to find a new job in a different vocational industry? Okay, so you were in a cleaning industry, now you're going to a reception industry, now you're going to an admin industry, now you're going to an electrical industry, now you're going to a driving of a truck or transportation industry. So why did you quit these 3 jobs and then not find another? Why did you stop trying at that point? And that is very important. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to read to you the 5 questions. That way you have them summarized at the very end. We're going to read them at the similar pace in which a judge would. Actually, I'll read them slowly, and then I'll read them quickly like a judge would actually deliver them to you. Okay, here we go. Number 1, when was the last time you felt your medications were not effectively reducing your mental impairment symptoms? Number 2, when was the last time you were inpatient at a mental facility, and what steps were undertaken by the staff to reduce the severity of your symptoms? Number 3, Do you feel like your mental conditions are improving? And help me out with understanding why. Number 4, what are your symptoms and how often do you experience them with your anxiety? Number 5, when you quit your last 3 jobs, can you explain to me why you didn't try to find, a new job in a different, work environment or vocational environment or vocational industry? Now we're going to read them just like the judges would hand them out. Okay. All right. When was so let's say it's Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, when was the last time that you felt your medication was not effectively reducing your mental impairment symptoms? Okay. Number 2, Mr. Smith, when was the last time you were inpatient at a mental facility, and what steps were undertaken by the staff to reduce the severity of your symptoms? Number 3, Mr. Smith, do you feel like your mental conditions are improving? And help me out with understanding why. Number 4, Mr. Smith, what are your symptoms and how often do you experience them with your anxiety? Number 5, when you quit your last job, Mr. Smith, can you explain to me why you didn't try to find like a new job in a different vocational environment? That's how fast and that's how aggressive and quick and whoa it actually feels like. And these questions are just getting more and more tough as the years go by because the judges, they're trying to get deeper and deeper into the crust of why this individual is disabled because they want to know too. They want to know, okay, is this person really disabled or are they not disabled? A lot of people have this like notion that all the judges are against them and da 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 da. No, the judges are truly trying to. Most of them, some of them do have that aggressiveness where they're just like deny, 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 deny. So, but a lot of them are looking at this thing and they're going, wait a minute, okay, here's the onion. Let's peel back this layer and peel back that layer. What are we looking at here? What are we looking at here? And they want to see what's inside it. Real quick thing, Diana Fernandez, thank you for the 99-cent donation and the $99 donation. Absolutely love it. Love a little thinking face there. Love a little thanks heart. That's super cool. Very, very cool. So with that said, you have to keep in mind that the judges are usually looking for, how do I see more inside this person's existence? How do I have a veil in front of me? And how do I spread the veil and kind of look in and be like, okay, are they really disabled there? Are they really disabled there? Does this evidence make sense? Does that evidence make sense? They go through it and do analysis like that to go ahead and look at it. And the point is that these questions serve as foundational requests for understanding how severe you truly are and whether or not you're improving and whether or not your symptoms are causing you more issues than just the general impairment in total, right? Because I want to know if your symptoms are really bad, you can't work. But how do we know how bad they actually are? And that's where we get into auxiliary evidence for the type of impairment, okay, beyond just the medical evidence. Anyways, guys, I will catch you at the next video. The next video we're going to be doing is basically the access code key to Social Security benefits, something that a lot of people never learn. I'm going to be doing a very short summarized video on it so that you can understand what are the actual access key numbers to be found disabled, because a lot of people just think disability, it's like, well, you throw it up at the wall and maybe they'll decide to approve it, maybe they won't. No, there's a metric, there's a design, there's literally a dichotomy of this and that, there's a hierarchy, a taxonomy, whatever you want to call it. There are elements to this thing. We're going to go through them in the next video. Okay, I'll catch you guys a little bit later. You have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we will go from there. Thank you so much. And ... please remember to be safe. Please remember to like, subscribe, hit the all button. If you want to leave a review, go to Google, Disability Resolution Law Firm, Disability Resolution Florida. And also, very important, if you need a disability attorney, you know who to call. I'll catch you a little bit later, and we'll go from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, thank you so much. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.